In this video, I'm going to show you how to create Illustrator actions that are going to help to speed up your workflow. Illustrator actions allow you to record sets of tasks and individual actions that you perform regularly, so that when you find yourself having to perform those tasks again, you won't have to go through all the steps again. You'll already have a saved set of actions ready to go with the click of a button. Want to learn how to use them? Well, I'm going to show you right now. So let's get right into it. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is to pull up our Actions panel. And you're going to find that in Window, Actions, and that pulls up the panel. So I'm just going to drag it in here so that it's with my other panels. And you're going to see that Illustrator already has default actions built in. So if you click on this drop-down arrow, you'll see the different options that Illustrator already gives you. So you can explore these and see what they do and see if they're useful for you. But a lot of designers that use actions actually just make their own, because these are just very basic actions that might not be well suited for your type of artwork. So I'm going to show you right now how to create your own set of actions. So the first action that I want to record is actually I want to make a new file in a 3" by 3" size. And I'm going to have that recorded as an action. So anytime I want to make a 3" by 3" repeat, I can just click on that action and it'll automatically do it for me. So I do need to have at least one file open, because if not, you're not going to have access to any of your panels. So I just have this random untitled file open. It's like an 11 by 17 file. And I'm going to click up here to this drop-down menu. And the first thing I'm going to do is make a new set, or basically a new folder that's going to have all of the actions for this particular type of task. So let's click on New Set, and we want to name our new set. So let's call it New Repeat 3 by 3 for 3" by 3", and click OK. So now you see you have a new folder. And the actions that you make from now on, as long as you have this highlighted, are going to go into this new folder and not into your default actions. So it's important that you have this selected. So we have it selected, and we're going to click up here again to New Action this time. And that's going to create a brand new action. So you can also select New Action. If you go down here to this plus sign, it says Create New Action. So let's do that. And you'll see that there are a few more choices here. So with New Action, you're going to name whatever that specific action is, and it is a really good idea to name your actions because you're going to have a lot of them here and you need to know what each one does. So the first action that we're going to create is an action that will actually pull up a 3" by 3" artboard for us to start our work on. So I'm going to call it New Artboard 3 by 3. And we're making sure that it's within the new repeat 3 by 3 set that we just created. And here, this function key option is a really cool option that actually allows you to create your own shortcut for this action. So when you make this shortcut, you're actually going to be able to recreate this action even quicker, because you won't even have to go to the actions menu. You'll just simply click on whatever function key you selected for this action. So let's make this F2. And if I did have a shortcut already with F2 before, Illustrator won't let me pick that one. And it'll make me either pick a different number here, or it's going to make me pick F2 along with Shift or Control. So that's not a problem right now, but that's what it would do if you had already picked F2 before for something else. And then here under color, you can pick a color to color code your actions. Maybe if you're making several actions that are in the same category as one another, you might want to make them the same color. And you can't see the colors here, but you'll see it when we go into button mode, which I'll show you a little bit later on. So I'm just going to make this one violet, and I'll show you where that violet shows up later on. So as soon as I hit record, it's going to start recording the action that I want to create. And I'll show you how that works right now. So let's hit record. And you can see that the red button here that says begin recording is grayed out because it's recording right now. So I'm going to click on File, New, and I'm going to create my new artboard to that 3" by 3" size that I said I was going to make. So let's put in all of our settings exactly how we want them here. So it's going to be 3" in width by 3" in height. We don't need to worry about bleed, and I like to work in RGB with raster effects at 300 ppi, preview mode default. I don't need to go into these other settings, and I'm going to hit create. So this is our new file, and if we click on the artboard here, it pulls up the measurements and we can see that it is in fact 3 inches by 3 inches. So now we want to stop recording because that's the end of us creating the new artboard. So let's hit stop playing or stop recording. And Illustrator has created this action for us now. So within the new repeat set, I have my first action, which is creating a new artboard that's 3 inches by 3 inches. Okay, so if we want to test this out, if we want to see how we can play back an action, meaning that we can recreate it for the next time, all we have to do is click on the action, not on the set, but on the specific action. And we're gonna click on this play button. And when we click on that, it's gonna repeat that action. So you see that I had this file was my 3 inch by 3 inch, and now I have another file that's also 3 inches by 3 inches. So you see how that works? Once you record it and you stop recording, it's created the new action, and once you hit play, it's gonna do that action again anytime you want. So let's click out of this file because we don't need 2 of those files, and we're gonna work on this new artboard that we just made. So we're not recording right now, we're just doing our work in Illustrator, and I'm gonna bring some elements into my page to create our repeat. Okay, so these are the elements that I want to use, and I'm going to start arranging my repeat how I want it, and I'm going to show you some of the more useful actions that we can record so that we can have those ready to create the same type of repeat the next time. So let me start arranging my edges, and we're going to speed through this part. I'm going to fill in the middle parts a bit here. Okay, so now that I have this much down, I want to actually create my repeat edges now to cause them to repeat seamlessly. So the first thing that we need to do to create our seamless repeat, and you may have seen this if you saw my how to create a seamless repeat video, is that we want to take the objects on the left side of the artboard and copy them over to the right side, but making sure that they're intersecting the artboard in the exact same place. So since we know that our artboard is 3 inches by 3 inches, we're gonna move these elements exactly 3 inches over. So in order to record that action so that we can easily implement that on another print in the future, we're gonna go up here to this drop-down menu, click on New Action. We're gonna type in move right, so move to the right, 3 inches. It's within the set that we want it to be in, or in the folder we want it to be in. And let's just make a shortcut for that too. So let's click on F3 and we'll select a blue color for this. So hit record. And as you can see, it's now recording. And we're gonna now right click, hit transform, move. We're gonna do 0 for vertical because we don't want to change the position of those elements vertically at all. We just want to move them over to the right horizontally by 3 inches. So I'm going to type in 3 inches and we can preview that. But what we want to make sure is that we hit copy so that it copies it and doesn't just move them. So it's going to copy those elements and it's going to move the copied elements over by 3 inches. So let's hit copy, and it did exactly what we wanted it to. Now the elements that were here are copied onto the other side of the artboard and they're intersecting the artboard in exactly the same spot. So that's perfect. So now that we've finished that one action, we're gonna hit stop recording because we've completed that one action. So if you drop this down here, you'll see that under the name that we gave it, move right 3 inches, Illustrator's showing you what was recorded. So what was recorded was a move, and it's showing you that it moved the objects horizontally by 216 points, which if you check, it's gonna be the equivalent of 3 inches. I guess it's just showing me points because maybe I have that set up that way in my preferences. Now vertically, it moved it 0 points, which is what we wanted. And did we make a copy or did we just move the objects? We did make a copy, so it says yes. So you see that Illustrator now has this action recorded, and next time that we're making another 3 inch by 3 inch repeat, we can use this move to do it a lot faster. We won't have to actually go through the steps, and I'm gonna demonstrate all that for you later on. So, okay, let's move on to the next thing that we wanna do, which is we wanna take the elements that are intersecting the top part of the artboard, and we want to copy them down to exactly the same intersecting area at the bottom of the artboard. So we're going to do the same type of thing. We're going to make sure to go up here and click on New Action. And the new action will be to move down this time 3 inches. It's within the set that we want to save it. And we'll use function key F4. Now you don't always have to pick a function key. That's just if you want to make a shortcut, but I'm gonna demonstrate that shortcut for you later on. So that's why I'm choosing it for these two. I guess for the next actions that we do, we don't necessarily have to make the shortcut. And I'm gonna put it into the blue category because it's in the same category as that other move that we did. So hit record. So now it's recording what you're doing, and I already have my object selected. I'm gonna right click, hit transform, move. And this time horizontally, we don't wanna move it, so we're gonna put 0. And vertically, we wanna move it down 3 inches. And we wanna make sure to copy the objects, not just move them. So hit copy. And you can see that Illustrator did what we wanted it to do. And we're gonna hit stop playing or stop recording. And as we can see, a new action was created. This one is moved down 3 inches like we named it. It's showing us right here that it moved 0 points horizontally and negative 216 points vertically, and it made a copy. So the next step in creating our repeat is to make sure that we have everything in the middle the way that we want it, and just make sure that we do like the way that our edges are lined up. So usually when we're at this step, we start moving elements around, we start rotating things, scaling things. So let's make some actions that can help us with that. Now, you can't use the actions to freehand change something, but if there are certain ways that you find yourself over and over again editing your print elements, then you can record those actions and save them to use later. So let's say that you are someone who likes to rotate your objects, and maybe you just like to rotate them to some standard degrees, like rotate 90 degrees or rotate 180 or rotate 45 degrees. Let's create an action for that. So I'm gonna take this element right here and let's create an action to rotate this by 45 degrees. So let's do new action, rotate 45. It's within the set that we want. We don't need to do a function key for this, and we don't need to do a color for it either. Those are just optional things. You can do them every time if you want, or you can just skip that step. So let's just go right on to recording. And you see that it's now recording. So I'm gonna right click, do transform, rotate, and I have 45 degrees already typed in here. I'm not gonna make a copy. I'm actually just gonna rotate this one object, and I'm gonna click OK. So now that I finished doing that, I'm gonna make sure to hit stop playing, and that now created my action to rotate any object to 45 degrees. So let's test that out actually. Let's take this flower now, and I'll zoom in so you can get a better look at what I'm doing. We're gonna take this flower, we're gonna click on the rotate 45 degrees action that we made. And if we want to repeat that on this flower, we're gonna hit the play button. And as you can see, it rotated it 45 degrees. So let's say that I want to rotate this one 45 degrees. I can also click on the object, click on the action that I want to do, and click rotate, and you see that it rotated it 45 degrees as well. So let's undo those for the moment. Just wanted to demonstrate that for you. And another action that we can record is that we can record our reflect horizontal and our reflect vertical. So I'm gonna choose this object here, do new action. Let's do reflect horizontal. It's in the set that we want. We're gonna skip over the function key and the color, and we're gonna hit record, and we're gonna right click, transform, reflect, and make sure that it's on horizontal. We don't need to copy it, and we'll click OK, and we'll stop our recording. So you can see that it reflected. So if we want to do that same action to another object, we can click on the object, click on the action that we want to reproduce, play current selection, and it reflected it horizontally. But we're gonna go back because that was just to demonstrate. So let's go ahead and make a reflect vertical as well so that we can also have the opposite action available. So selecting the object that I want to reflect, clicking on the drop-down menu, clicking new action. Let's call it reflect vertical, record. Now it's recording, so we'll right click, transform, reflect. This time we'll select vertical, we'll click OK, and we'll stop our recording. And now if I want to reflect another object vertical, I just have to select the object, select on the reflect vertical action, hit play, and it did the same action on that other element. I'm just bringing these back now. And another action that we might use often when we're creating prints is enlarging certain elements. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. But real quick, if you're finding this content useful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It'll help me to keep bringing you more useful videos like this. So let's say that I want to enlarge this little flower right here. Let's select it, click on the drop-down menu, click New Action. Let's call this Enlarge, and we do have to assign a certain percentage to it. So think about a percentage that you often use. You can just do like a 10%, and you'll see that we can actually keep repeating the action and it'll keep increasing it by 10% the more that you click. So you can start with something subtle like that, or if you just want to go ahead and do 20% or whatever you usually find yourself enlarging objects to, you can go ahead and just select whatever amount you want. So let's do 10% for now. It's within the set that we want. We'll skip over function color and hit record. We're now recording, and we're gonna right click, transform, scale, and we're gonna enlarge the object by 10%. So we're typing 110. We're making sure that we select scale corners and scale strokes and effects. You wanna have everything set the way that you want that action to function in the future too. So this is how we want it, and we're gonna click OK. And we're gonna stop recording. And now if we wanna take a different object and enlarge that 10%, let's see how that works. Let's click on this one right here. And we're gonna click on the action that we wanna use and hit play to enlarge it 10%. So once I click it, it's enlarged 10%. And like I mentioned, if you wanna keep enlarging it more, if it's not big enough yet, you can just keep clicking play and it'll enlarge it another 10%. Click play again and it'll enlarge another 10 and another 10 and another 10, and actually that's a good way that you can quickly change the scale of your elements without having to go back into the transform menu time and time again. So I find that one really useful, and I'm just gonna go back a little bit here because I don't actually want to make it that large. So let's move on to another action. So if enlarge is an action that's useful for us, then probably shrinking an object would be another useful one for us too in our print design. So let's go ahead and pick an object to shrink down a little bit. So we're gonna click on this big flower here, and we'll click on New Action. Let's call it Shrink 10%. We'll click on Record. It's now recording. We're gonna right click, do Transform, Scale, and 90% will make it 10% smaller. We're making sure we have our options the way that we want them. So scale corners, scale strokes and effects. Click OK. And as you can see, it shrunk the flower by 10%. And now we're gonna hit stop recording. So now, if we wanna take this other flower and shrink it 10%, we're gonna click on the flower, we're gonna click on the action, and we're gonna hit play, and it shrunk it 10%. And if I wanna keep shrinking it down, if it's still too big, I just have to click on play again. It shrunk it another 10%, and again. And I can go back to that first flower because I think it's still too big. And we're gonna shrink it down another 10% and another 10% and another 10%. And if I feel like I went too far with that, I can either hit Control Z to go back, or I can click on my enlarge 10% and I can click on that and enlarge it again. Okay, let's say that we wanna move an element over just a little bit and we wanna save an action that moves our elements over just a little bit. So you can click on the object and hold Shift and click on your right arrow key to move it over just a little. So let's say that maybe we want an action that does that because we often make little moves like that with our elements. So let's go back, let's click on the element, do New Action, and I'm just gonna call this Move Slightly. And I'll just know what that means, but you can call it something more specific to help you to remember. So I'm hitting record, and I'm gonna hold Shift and click on my right arrow key to move it over a little bit to the right. I'm gonna stop recording. And now if I wanna move this other object over the same way, I'm gonna click on the object, click on that action, hit play, and it moves it over the same amount that I moved this other flower over. And you can see that it actually does record the exact amount that Illustrator moved it over. So apparently when I hit Shift and clicked on my right arrow key, it moved it over 10.01 points. So Illustrator will move it the exact same amount that you did when you recorded. Okay, so let me fix some of my elements manually here. Now, the actions are not going to be able to create your entire repeat. You are going to have to change some things manually as well, but they are useful when you're doing those repetitive tasks that you find yourself doing over and over again. Okay, so now we're going to record an action that's pretty useful when creating repeats. So we're going to create the background box for our repeat. And that action is going to include the color of the background and also the invisible bounding box that you have to make behind that to make it into a repeat swatch. So let's go ahead and do that. So the way that we do that is we go to our swatches and we'll select on the color that we want our background to be. So we're picking this ivory color, selecting our rectangle tool. We're going to go to Actions so that we can record what we're doing. Click on New Action. We're going to call it Background Box. Click Record. And with our rectangle tool, we're clicking on the page. We're going to make our background box exactly 3 inches by 3 inches because that's the size of our repeat. Click OK. And we want to get that background box aligned with the artboard. So we're going to the Align panel. We're going to make sure that we are clicking Align to Artboard. And we're going to align the center of the box with the center of the artboard, both horizontally and vertically. And now we're going to right click, Arrange, Send to Back, and it put the background box behind our elements like we want. We're going to hit Control-C and Control-B, and we're going to remove the color from the fill of that copy of the background box, which is what we need to get it to be a swatch. We're going back to our actions and we see that it did do all of these things, and we're going to hit stop recording. And we're going to drag over our swatch like we would normally do. Drag it into the swatches panel to create our print. And now we're actually going to create an action that allows you to test out your print. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit and we're just going to choose any color here. I'm going to click on New Action. We'll call this one Test Box. Hit Record. And we're going to take our rectangle tool and just create a large box that we want to use to fill in our swatch and test our repeat. But we're just going to leave it in a blank color for now. And I'll show you why in a minute. So we're going to hit stop recording and I'm going to delete this. So the way that you're actually going to use your test box is that you're going to, when you're ready to test, let's say that you made a whole new print, you're going to select on the swatch that you created, go to Actions, click Test Box, hit play, and there you go. There's your test box. And the reason that I did it like this and didn't record myself selecting the swatch is because if I do that, the next time that I use it on a different print, it's going to be searching for that pattern swatch. And I don't want it to do that. I just simply wanted it to make a big rectangle that's big enough to test out my repeat, and it'll replicate it for the next one. And I'll just make sure to select the swatch that I want. So now we can zoom in and check on our repeat. If you wanted to add zoom in to this function, you could also do that. But since you're going to be zooming in on different parts depending on your print, I'm not going to add zoom in to the actions on this one. So now a really important thing that we need to do is we need to save this set of actions that we just created. Because when we close out of Illustrator or when we close out of our actions, sometimes Illustrator will delete that whole set of actions and you'll only have the default actions that are already built into Illustrator. So you really don't want to lose those actions after you just spent all this time creating them. The whole point was to save them so that you can use them for future use. So anytime that you finish creating your action set, you're going to click on the action set, highlight it, click on the drop-down menu, and click on Save Actions. So you're going to see that it's saving it as an action file or a .aia. It has the name that you named that set, and you're going to pick one location where you're going to save all of your actions. So I highly recommend that you create a folder that's easily accessible where you're going to want to save these actions from now on. You might want to do it on your desktop, or you might just have a dedicated folder somewhere else. So I'm going to save it within my same folder that I'm working. And you see I have some other actions here. Just make sure it doesn't have the same name as any other action set that you saved. And I'm clicking on save, and that action is now saved elsewhere, and I don't have to worry that when I open Illustrator again another day, if it's gone, it doesn't matter. I can just pull it back up. So let's get rid of this actually. I'm gonna delete that whole set that we just made, and I'm gonna show you how to pull it back up. So let's say it's the next day, I open up Illustrator and for some reason those actions are gone. So I'm gonna just click on the drop-down menu. I'm gonna click on Load Actions. I'm gonna go back to wherever I saved it. So you really have to remember what folder you saved it in. And here I know that the one I want is New Repeat 3x3. Click Open, and now that action set is back. Click the drop-down menu, and I can see that all of this is still right here. Okay, so we're gonna now make another repeat, and we're gonna use these new actions that we created to make that repeat quicker. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is let's use the shortcut key that we made here to create our new artboard that's 3x3. So let's hit F2. And you see that I didn't even have to click on the action and hit play. I was able to do it in one step with the shortcut that we created through our actions options. So that made it even quicker. So let's now take our elements, and we'll use the same elements because we're just testing this out, but we can just arrange them in a different way. So I'm gonna copy these elements, put them on my new 3x3 artboard, and let's create like a slightly different variation of that print. So I'll speed right through this. And this one may not be as nice because I'm just doing this so that we can test out these features. Okay, so we're gonna select over the elements on the left side of the artboard, and we wanna move them right 3 inches. So we created that keyboard shortcut, so all we have to do is select them, hit F3, and we move them. And then we can select over these elements at the top, and we made a shortcut to move them down, which is F4, and it moved them perfectly. So now we have our repeat edges done, and we didn't make shortcuts for the other ones, but just to show you how to play them back, we'll select this one, we'll click on rotate 45 degrees, hit play, and that rotated it 45 degrees. Now we'll click on this one, select reflect horizontal, we'll click play, and it reflected it horizontally. Now we can just select that again, click on reflect vertical, hit play, and it reflected it vertically. Then we can take this flower, click on enlarge 10%, hit play. If it's still not big enough, we can just hit play again as many times as you want to make it as big as you want. And we can take this other flower, we can actually select 2 flowers at the same time or as many as we want. And let's say that we want to shrink those, we'll click on shrink 10%. And if we click play, it's going to shrink all of them by 10%. And then let's say that I want to take this one and move it over slightly. When I hit play, it's gonna move it over as much as I had recorded. And I can actually click on that again and click on play again if I wanna move it again. But we'll just go back. So those are things that you might wanna do with your middle elements. That's why we recorded that. If you have other tasks that you normally do with your elements, then go ahead and record those as actions now that you know how. And let's say that I'm happy with my print like this. Now I'm gonna do my background box. So let's select a color first. We'll select maybe, let's do black this time. So let's click on the background box action, hit play. And it used the swatch that I had selected. That's why I selected it first. And it went ahead and created my background box in the color that I wanted. And you want to go in and check your layers and just make sure that it did in fact make that invisible bounding box behind the colored background. So then you're gonna drag over everything, drag it into your swatches panel to make your swatch, And then you can use your actions to make your test box. And remember that I told you before, just make sure that your swatch that you want to test is selected. Click play, and the test box appeared with the print that you wanted. So now you can zoom in and check everything out, make sure that there's no white lines, make sure that there's no mistakes anywhere, and there you go. So previously, I showed you that when you're creating each action, you have the option to choose a color for your action. That color doesn't show up in this view of the Actions panel, but you can see it when you switch over to button mode. To switch over, go to the 3-line menu, click on button mode down here, and you see that the view changes. You're now in button mode. Button mode is another view of the Actions panel where you see the actions listed like this, and you can also see them color-coded if you've assigned any color to them. It works slightly differently in that when you click on an action in button mode, the action will be performed right away as soon as you click that button. There's no play button to press in this mode, so it's a little quicker. So as far as the color coding, I had chosen a violet color for the action that I created to make my new 3" by 3" artboard. And here in button mode is where you can see that violet color on the action. And you can also see the blue color that I chose for 2 of my move options, because I wanted to make them the same color since I consider them to be in the same category as one another. I didn't continue to color code all of the actions that I made in this video, but you can go ahead and color code all of your actions if you want. Using this view might be helpful for you, but it's totally up to you which view you prefer to use. So actions can be really useful, and you see how quickly we made that second repeat. It can really help to cut down your time, and I feel like it's just as useful as shortcuts. It's like another way to make shortcuts. It's a way to kind of record your shortcuts and even create your own shortcuts too, like we did with the command keys here. So I hope that you found the tutorial useful, and if you want to learn how to make prints like a pro, make sure that you check out the rest of my print pattern playlist.